Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Robert Jaquay. On today's program, we're going to be talking with Michael Mensching, who is a Spanish teacher at Colonie Central High School. He's also a delegate leader for the People to People program. Let's go talk to Mike, find out about him and People to People. Mike, I want to thank you very much for being my guest today.
No problem.
Before we get into the discussion about People to People, I would just like to give our viewers a little bit of information about yourself. You know, where you came from, how you got to where you are now, and whatever you want to tell us.
Okay. This is my 20th year of teaching. I'm currently teaching at South Colonie High School, and I teach Spanish, mostly 10th grade Spanish. And I also can teach French. I went back for my French certification a few years ago. I also have taught at Chatham High School and Chatham Middle School, and earlier in my career I was up at Saratoga. I do a lot of theater at the school and also in the area. I'm an area director for Schenectady Light Opera and Spotlight Theater. I'm currently vice president of Spotlight Theater. And got into People to People through my colleagues who had been traveling with them.
Okay. Now, People to People, I'm going to ask you this question two different ways.
Okay.
What is People to People?
Okay, People to People was an organization. It was actually the brainchild of Dwight Eisenhower, who had several very influential friends, Walt Disney, Jesse Owens, Joyce Hall, who was the founder of Hallmark Cards, Bob Hope, who himself was a person that wanted to take the life of comedy overseas and entertain the troops, but he was actually also on a peace mission doing that and bringing laughter around the world. Walt Disney, famous for bringing his magic to everyone, and was a person that was very influential in wanting peace on earth and so forth. Together, they combined their efforts, and as a former military leader, Dwight Eisenhower realized that to get peace on earth, as everybody wants, I would hope, that there was ways to do that through non-military action, and that was to actually get people to meet each other from around the world, and through understanding of each other's culture, maybe we would then attain peace.
Okay. Now, Eisenhower did this when he was president. This is when he was in the
1956.
Okay.
He started the grassroots for what is now the People to People organization. Actually, last year, People to People celebrated their 50th year.
50th year.
Originally, People to People was not for student ambassadors. It was adult ambassadors, business organizations that would travel abroad. A friend of mine, actually in the 70s, traveled with his company to Japan through People to People, and that was the mechanism that his company used. They sort of accompanied the People to People group, and that was the liaison between them and the Japanese company.
Okay. And then when did it switch over to become a student program?
It's been a student program basically for the last 30 years. Full-fledged student program. They started changing it over and realizing that you really need to capture the youth that will grow up to be the future generations of tomorrow, and to promote peace. And I think it's a great way because students are much more open-minded about other cultures. They're more willing to take chances, take risks in meeting somebody and trying out language and trying new adventures and so forth. And they don't have the busy schedules, or as busy a schedule as the adults in society do. They have the opportunity to go over and drop everything that they're doing in the United States and go for 2 or 3 weeks. So.
Now, this is not like a student year abroad or whatever. This
It's not
takes place in the
it's
summer?
It's not a student year abroad. Most of the programs do take place during the summer, although there are trips during the year that that alumni can go on, that adults that are with the people-to-people program, former leaders, et cetera, are invited to go on. They do have international councils that people serve on and meet as just a gathering place in various foreign countries. But most of the travel does happen during the summer. And the leaders need to be either a current educator or a former educator that has retired.
Well, I'm just going to, that goes into my next question, is how did you mentioned a bit about your friend, I think, referred it to you or got you involved, but how did you get involved and how did you become a leader?
Right. I have a few colleagues in my department at South Colonie that have traveled with people-to-people as leaders. Some of them are actually former delegation leaders. They are at a point in their lives where they're doing other things with their children and maybe can't afford the time to go in the summer. So it does fluctuate in who is able to travel from year to year, but many of them have traveled for 8 or 9 years. This is my 5th year as a leader, my 4th time traveling, and it's my first year as a delegation leader. I've been just a leader within the delegation previously, but I'm the head leader this year.
Okay, so let's differentiate leader and delegation leader.
People-to-people tries to send, they're not always able to do that, but they try to send someone with 2 or 3 years experience traveling abroad with the company to be the head leader for the delegation. A delegation is made up of approximately 40 students. In the Albany area, we usually have between 80 and 100 students that travel abroad for these trips. And it would be ridiculous to try to have 80 people go as one group. And because of airfare and schedule, they do send them over at separate times. So they try to take their most experienced leaders and break them up to lead the various delegations. And then new leaders that sign on, or leaders with only 1 year experience, they assign them to those leaders because they try to have at least a 1 to 10 ratio with the students.
Okay. Now, this is Colonie, and you're talking about how many people from Colonie, but it's nationwide, right?
It's nationwide. We actually have in the Albany delegation, we have a girl from California that is traveling with us. We will meet her in Chicago, which is our layover on our way to Japan. We will meet her for the first time there. I've called her on the phone. She is traveling with us because her area is not traveling to Japan. People-to-people has probably 20 to 30 different places that they're traveling students to all over the country.
Wow.
The Albany delegation has been so successful that they often give us newer programs or very exotic programs. We were one of the first places to travel to China 2 years ago, China and Japan. The middle school actually traveled to Japan from the Albany delegation, and the high school delegation traveled to China. And when I say 80 to 100 delegates, that's just high school. We also have approximately that number in middle school. So from the Albany area, we have about 140 traveling per year.
That's amazing. Now, it's all the schools in the area?
All the schools in the area. It can go up as far as Utica, as far south as Rockland County. Generally, all the students are within a 45-minute range.
Okay. And you mentioned high school, middle school. Those are 2 categories, or high school and middle school?
High school and middle school. Middle school being 5th through 8th grade.
Okay.
Some of the 5th and 6th grade trips, they travel within the United States because the students are much younger. It's just easier having them within our own country for certain aspects of the trips. It's not as long. They don't send them for 3 weeks. It's always a 2-week trip. They travel to like the Rocky Mountains or to Yosemite Park.
Cool places to go.
Cool places to go, yeah. Arizona,
Yeah.
Grand Canyon.
Now, how is this advertised? I mean, is it word of mouth? I mean, do students pass it on? Is it promoted in the school? Is it promoted from outside?
You know, a lot of it is actually word of mouth. Students are nominated most often by either teachers or their guidance counselor initially. Then a lot of them receive the information in the mail, and many times, just like junk mail, it gets tossed aside, or students aren't ready to do it yet. Their parents are saying, you know, you're too young or whatever. A lot of them end up applying because they have a friend, or they have a friend of their parents who has traveled or has had a son or daughter travel people to people, and realize that it's a great experience. It's very educational as well as enjoyable. You know, it's not just a vacation, it's an educational experience, and People to People sets it up to be a very educational and rewarding experience, and a very cultural experience. Often we have homestays where the students will stay with an actual family for 2 or 3 days.
Okay. Now, nominations from teachers or from anybody?
A teacher can nominate a student, an administrator, guidance counselor can nominate a student, and a former People to People delegate or current delegate can nominate another student. And after they're nominated, if they do apply, then they are put through an interview process and then accepted or denied.
Okay. So it's highly competitive, I would imagine?
It's not highly competitive. I mean, most students that are nominated are generally good candidates for the program. Very few people are denied because usually the person that you're dealing with in the interview is very acceptable.
Now, do you interview locally, or do you?
We interview locally.
You do?
Even the people from Utica have to travel down for the interviews. The main meeting is actually at the Education Building in Albany, the State Education Building, where the national leader for the program comes and speaks, Jack Vines, and the area leader for New York State, that is Barbara Capozzi, she also comes. And they speak to about probably 500 people that are invited to the meetings.
Now, is this parents and
students?
Parents and students,
right.
Okay.
And brothers and sisters, so forth. And then we're there also to answer questions and help out with paperwork. They do a presentation there, and then the parents and the students go home and decide whether they are actually interested in applying for the program or not. Following that, we have the interviews, and they're broken up into delegations immediately, like you have 45 students to interview for your delegation, and they split them up right away. It's actually first come, first serve as to who gets in the first delegation, who gets in the second. There's no priority seating here for anybody, even alumni that have traveled before. Okay. Alumni who have traveled before and who have been through the program have an automatic pass into getting into the next program.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, because after they travel on the trip, we write an evaluation of them, and if we deem them unacceptable to travel again, we would do that at that stage. So if they receive another invitation from People to People in the mail, they assume that they've already been accepted into the next program.
Wow, wow. And do they declare their intention that they want to keep going? They're just so enervated by the trip, the experience?
We do have 2 or 3 students per trip. I say per trip because this year for Albany we're traveling to 2 different locations.
Okay.
We do have 2 or 3 per delegation. I have 3 alumni in my delegation right now. It's great that the kids come back after having an awesome experience, and they say it's nothing like they've ever experienced before. A lot of them do it again. It's expensive. I'm not going to...
Well, I was going to say, what is there? I mean, it's not a free program.
It's not a free program.
Is there a scholarship? Is it tuition? What are you...
No, it's tuition-based. It's between $5,000 and $6,000.
That's significant.
That is significant in this day and age. A lot of that cost has gone up because of gas prices and airfare costs. They do try also to get students into 3- and 4-star hotels over there wherever we go, because they want the best but affordable still for the students to keep the prices low. And they really don't skimp on the excursion. they try to get to the best places and try to get the most educational value out of the trip.
Okay, now, they've done the process, they've been selected, and you're going now. You're going to Japan. There's another delegation going to...
They're going to Europe. They're going to Germany, Italy, and Greece. And I could have actually gone on that trip.
2 in 1 year?
No, it wouldn't be. It was either or. And basically, the reason why I didn't go on that trip or didn't apply for that trip, because I was asked to go, was because it's a 26-day excursion, and I didn't really want to leave my family for 26 days.
Okay.
The excursion to Japan is only 14 days, so it's 2 weeks. And
manageable.
Yeah, manageable rather than 3 and almost 4 weeks abroad.
Now you talk about it being an educational experience, and you're getting into learning about a culture and the people there, but there's most likely, I would imagine, touring, seeing the sites in a particular area, and then, is it structured so it's like a classroom experience, or is it more like a tour?
No, it's absolutely like a tour. We do have a tour bus over there. We have a delegation manager who speaks the foreign language of the country, so we don't have the language barrier. Although a lot of times when I go, being a Spanish teacher and able to speak French, I've used my language abilities quite often. I've traveled to Brazil, and even though it's mostly Portuguese based, I can get away with using Spanish there. I also use Spanish in Italy. They can usually understand me better than I can understand them.
Will you be surprised if you can use Spanish in Japan?
Well, no, but I did use French in China 2 years ago.
Okay.
Because
that's sort of an international language anyway,
it's
right?
kind of an international language, and I did find I needed something, and so I started speaking French, and somebody understood what I needed, so it was quite helpful. But then again, as an adult, personally, I don't have a problem with foreign languages and language barriers because I come across that all the time. But adults are a little more timid about not being able to speak the language, where students aren't as afraid to make the mistakes, and they know how to get what they need. I've seen students that have stayed with host families, and although we always hope that the host family is able to speak some English, sometimes they're not able to speak so well. So they do everything with pictures and point and yes and no, and it all works out. And it's only 2 or 3 days, so they're able to live through 2 or 3 days not able to speak the language, but to get their basic needs met.
So the host family experience, if there is one, is a part of the whole. It's just a couple of days.
It's only a couple of days. We want to give them the true family experience over there. It does bring down the cost of the trip a little more because it is less expensive than staying in the hotel and having meals provided. And most often students are with another delegate, so they're able to speak English with each other. And if there was an emergency, that they needed something desperately and couldn't get their host family to understand them, they can call the delegation manager who does speak the language, and through the phone they can figure out what they need. Usually between pointing and charades comes in very helpful. A lot of times too, especially in Europe, the children do speak English because they take it in school. So it's great when you get a host family that has children because they're actually sometimes a little more helpful than the parents are. When I was in China, there was a 13-year-old that took English in school, and he had only had 3 years of English, and this kid was great at speaking our language and watched the NBA all the time.
Okay.
So he watched a lot of American television, and he got us through. He was amazing for only having 3 years of English. You hope for those situations, but you don't always get them. But then again, even the students that have been in a homestay experience where there was a little language barrier, they ended up saying, but I really felt like I was there because, I wasn't having to use English as a crutch, and I was able to get what I needed, and it wasn't horrible. It was actually kind of fun, trying to communicate through eye contact, through visual cues that we don't even realize we use when we understand each other perfectly well.
Now, have you had, I would imagine you might, but have you had students who've come back from this experience who want to go back to that particular country or actually do go back?
Oh, sure. A lot of them actually have invited their host families over and have gone back to stay
Okay.
with them again.
Okay.
Again, it's only 2 to 3 days, so unless there's this magic that happens in the 2 or 3 days, it's possible, and it has happened with people. A lot of the families that People to People uses, they actually use other like People to People isn't just in the United States.
I was going to ask you that.
They have
It's not-
satellite,
okay.
they have satellite organizations.
Okay.
Sometimes they have a people-to-people office, or sometimes if the particular location doesn't have a people-to-people office there, they have another type of organization that they go through. For example, they might have an exchange program organization that has host families in that area, and they'll go to these families who are used to having students abroad, foreign students in their home, and they'll say, we have these students coming from the United States or coming from Albany, New York. Would you be willing to host them for 2 or 3 days? A lot of the families I've met have had other delegations or had either people to people or have had students from other organizations stay with them. So some of them are very used to the process. When I traveled to France, 4 years ago, traveled to France, and something happened in the itinerary. They had to change the itinerary at the last minute, and we actually went to a different homestay city, which was great because it was this little town nestled in southern France, and there was this castle. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. It wasn't exactly where we were supposed to stay, but they had to go through another organization, say we need some host families for these kids, and it was terrific because a lot of them, some of the families were for the first time, accepting somebody into their home, and it just makes it just so much more rewarding when you're working with somebody that's doing it for the first time, and they're rolling out the red carpet for you because they're just so excited to have a student come stay in their home.
I think it must be terribly exciting. One of the things we talked a little before we went on air here, but we talk about family. Now, parents don't go with students; it's just students who go. And so, when you talk about family, you're really talking about the family in the delegation, right? You become a
Absolutely.
family.
I tell the parents too. The parents are always invited to our orientation meetings.
Mm-hmm.
We have at least 6. My delegation right now has had 8 because we decided that we wanted to go see the Letters from Iwo Jima. We wanted to see that movie
How
together.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Great
because
idea.
because we're going to Hiroshima, and we just wanted more of a cultural awareness or a historical awareness. So we all went to the movies together, and we also did a meeting at the laser tag on Central because we wanted an experience together, bonding experience where we would just do something fun and just leave all the politics and the paper shuffling and all that stuff out of it. And I told the parents, go down to grandma's and have some cake, pie and coffee, because we wanted to bond with the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is for us to team building, and I try at least to have a lot of team building at the orientation meetings. We also meet with the parents though at the orientation meetings. Having 4 leaders, we're able to divide ourselves up, and we meet with the parents just to make sure that they have a comfort level with us, that they know that we're all teachers and we care about them. And I tell the kids in front of their parents, first of all, make sure that you're thanking your mom and dad every day for sending you on this trip, because it's a financial burden to them. And this is probably one of the greatest experiences they can give to you in your childhood. And also know that once you say goodbye to them at Crossgates Mall and get on the bus, you're my kid, and I'm your dad, and you abide by my rules, like them or not, because I'm looking out for your safety. And as a dad myself, if it was my kid traveling abroad with somebody I didn't know, I'd want to make sure that they were a good person and that they would look out for my kid. And so when I travel over there, I'm going to have 34 kids, and
I would imagine that the concerns might be obvious, but I mean, are there concerns that kind of rise to the surface that parents do express? I mean, is it mostly who they're in the care of, their children, or what's going on, or are they just routine concerns like what happens if?
Yeah, a lot of the concerns are standard. I mean, we get the same questions every year. We've been having more parent meetings than we have in the past, just because it kind of allays their fears a little and answers their questions before they can even ask them.
Yeah.
Most of the parents are like, well, what happens if they don't like their host family? And I'm like, well, it's kind of part of the experience, is getting to know a new culture, and to, there are people in the United States that you don't like either, but you can deal with them for 2 days,
Yeah.
okay? Unless there was a physical harm or something involved. Sometimes their questions are, well, my kid's a vegetarian, and you can explain that ahead of time. And actually, we have that on the form. So when they're placing students in people's homes, they say, well, you have a vegetarian, child, so make sure that, you.
Now, do you have to be ambulatory to go on this? Do you have anyone who's, confined to a wheelchair or ever? Or?
I haven't come across that. I don't think that they're denied necessarily, but I'm sure that People to People probably puts a lot of students with ambulatory problems in one delegation so that they can modify the trip
There's
for
a
them.
whole concentration there.
Yeah, for example, the girl that's traveling with us from California, she wasn't able to travel because of the times of the travel. She was doing, I think she was in a wedding or something, and so she's hooking up with us in Chicago. They're able to do that with other students as well. They can hook them up into other delegations where they would have the same difficulty, and therefore in the foreign country they would have buses that were handicap accessible, etc.
Timing. When does this all start? Is it continuous, or is there a point in time in the year when this starts to become a reality? Do you do it at the beginning of a school year? Do you do it a year in advance? Things like that.
Generally, the first meeting is in October, at the end of October. That's we call it the pitch meeting, where they show them the videos, they have all the presentations, they have former students come up and speak, they have leaders come up and speak, they have parents come up and speak about how they viewed the program, how rewarding was even for the student after they came home, and showed them everything that they had learned or experienced. Then in November we have the interviews, and they find out by the end of November whether they've been accepted. Sometimes we have a meeting before the holiday break, but not always. Sometimes we start up in January. And we have monthly meetings up until June, usually because the delegations leave early July.
Okay.
But we are actually leaving July 22nd. We are the flip side of another delegation that's going over. They're going over July 2nd, or 6th, I'm sorry. They're going over July 6th, and we're crossing in the air. So they're waved to each other on the way back.
Now, but the nominations themselves and that process are at the very beginning of the school year, or do they happen?
Actually, I just went through the nomination process recently.
Okay.
So I've nominated some of my students at Colonie for the next year.
All right, good.
And as a leader, I talk to my students about it. I say, this is where I'm going. All my students know I'm going to Japan, but then now they're starting to ask questions, and how do I get nominated, and so forth. So I'm going through that process now.
Terrific. Now I just want to get these little details because I want to talk about a few more things. But do they go to the website to do the nomination? Do you hand them out to get the? Well, I guess the nomination comes first. But do they interact with the website, or is it all done, through the school system?
I think the guidance counselors are all sent nomination forms because that's generally the easiest process if you don't have a leader within the school.
Okay.
I'm just told, because we have a website that we're able to go on to for information. The students have their own passwords. They can go on. They can check how much money they still owe because they have it in a payment system.
Oh, good.
They can check what size luggage they need, what to pack, all those things that they need for the trip, okay, including background information if they needed it to tell the host families. I can go on, I can access information on the students, like whether they have a medical hold, like if there's something that we need to be concerned about.
Okay.
We're also told that on paper as well. I go online to put the information about the monthly meetings, where they're going to be held, what are the times, et cetera, and students are able to access that. So everything can be done through the website. Students can apply through the website also if they found out they've been nominated. Sometimes they get just a postcard in the mail that says you've been nominated, so forth. Go to this website, check out the information if you would like to apply.
Okay.
Okay. They don't have to go to the first meeting to apply if they've been nominated. I mean, it's obviously more helpful because it explains everything to them and their parents at the same time. But no, they're not required to go to the first meeting to do that.
Now, bringing some things together here, there's also, we talked about a little bit before we started to go on air about the values. I mean, your kids come back and they've changed, and you made an expression that basically they've grown up in this experience, and they're also exploring differences, and similarities. And but I was interested also on the webpage that it talks about, self-esteem and confidence and things like that are a byproduct of this whole.
Well, the self-esteem comes from, I've seen a lot of kids that have gone over that have been very shy. And people always wonder, well, what are you looking for in the interview? We're looking for the kid also that will grow. Obviously, the kid that's very outgoing and a leader in their school community is one of the people most often nominated. But some teachers nominate students because they want them to have the experience to grow. The kid that's a leader will get a great experience, and they'll all have the same experience, but they won't all have the same growth.
Right.
I've seen a lot of students very quiet that have gone over, and they come back, and they're the first one to want to go back. And sometimes I'm sitting there, and I'm on the bus, and I'm like, are they having a good time? They're having a great time. They're just growing.
And they're absorbing.
And they're absorbing. They're just quiet absorbers. How they grow up? Well, having to exchange money in a foreign country is growth. Having to go through the airport, and we're very careful in the airports. We take them only through 10 at a time. The leaders split up with mini groups, and we take them through and make sure, because once we get to the airport, once we go through the security system, we actually lose control over them. Like the airport at any time can take a kid and say, okay, we need to search you for whatever,
right,
because they do random searches. And we, as people to people, we can say, well, you can't take my kid away, But we are with them, like we're there with them, so that they don't have to go through anything alone. The only time they're truly alone is, well, they're with another delegate, is their home stay situation, right, that they're away from us. And doing laundry, you wouldn't believe how many kids can't do laundry, and they're also always assuming, well, where's the washing machine? And I'm like, your washing machine is called the sink in your hotel room.
Or do they go by the bank of the river? I guess you're not there yet.
And the number of kids that come up, and when I was in Brazil, Brazil is very hot. It wasn't hot while we were there. It was actually their winter, but it was still pretty warm. But it was very muggy, and the humidity was high, and the kids are like, well, how come my stuff isn't drying? I'm like, because the humidity's high. If you're at a hotel for 3 days, you need to wash your laundry the first day and let it dry for 2 days. Or, and I would teach the kids, around the pool, it's really sunny. Take some of your really wet T-shirts and put them on the backs of chairs and help them dry. Unless you're going to pay, for the hotel to do it. Some kids do that. But in foreign countries, that becomes quite expensive. So, we always suggest that they bring a wool light or something that they can wash their clothes in the sink or in the tub or whatever, and hang them around the room and outside the window. And we teach them how to do it. And some of the leaders actually have to take the kids through the whole process.
It's terrific. I bet you there's some happy parents at the other side too when they see.
Well, they are. They're like, I can't believe you taught my kid how to do laundry. I can't, all these things. The parents are great. The parents are funny because sometimes I give them my email address so that they can write to me when I'm over there.
Yeah.
It's usually it's easier to contact by email. And we don't have the opportunity to call a lot because we're on the road so much, and the time difference is it's annoyingly ridiculous. So we use the email to communicate. And some of the parents, their basic complaint is like, my son or daughter hasn't written to me for like 4 or 5 days. Is he alive? And I'm like, it's great, it's fine. Don't worry about him. I would tell you if there was anything wrong, but we are so busy.
Yeah.
Over there that
Sorry to say they're not really thinking about you right now.
Yeah, and a lot of times if you're in a hotel, the only time you can get to a computer is like 7 o'clock in the morning, to 8 o'clock in the morning, because we're back too late sometimes.
Right.
So they don't really have a lot of opportunity to do so.
We're coming to the end of the program, and we didn't. I think we've covered lots of things, and there is a value too for the student. There's a way to get academic credit for the program, and to get advanced placement courses or something like that.
Eastern Washington University offers some college credit for for any student actually, but for college. We evaluate them at various stages in the program, the pre-travel, and travel and post-travel. The students have diaries, or they have journals that they write in daily, and we check those. They have to write every day in their journal about their experience. So that's offered for academic credit.
And so also on your application for college, I would imagine that this kind of adventure, this kind of experience is certainly something that would give them an advantage.
This program opens so many doors.
Yeah.
A lot of colleges, especially admission counselors, have had some type of experience with people to people, and it does open up an opportunity to talk about their travel experience and their growth experience through this program, and it looks great on a college resume. It really does.
I think it's terrific. I talked to you before about some other things, and you'd mentioned people to people. I had no clue. So, this has been extraordinarily interesting today, and I'd like to have you come back after your trip if you want to, and maybe we can do a little bit of a follow-up here, and with the pictures, I imagine you do a fair amount of that, or maybe not.
I'm not
a picture taker.
I take some pictures actually.
Okay. But anyway, maybe we can at least follow through with it, because I think it just really is. It's an extraordinary program, and I'm glad we have a chance to promote it. And we had also been talking about the Walt Disney connection, and I didn't know. I found out in the research that he was at a White House conference in '64, I believe it is, and the It's a Small World, which was I think first at Disneyland, and I think it's at Disney World, was created out of this experience to sort of give a little experience of what it was to go through other
global
countries
understanding,
and
right?
Global understanding. So that's kind of neat. Before we end, is there anything you want to repeat or to emphasize, or?
Well, just we have 5 students going from my high school this year. We have Catherine Salamone and Ryan Couch. They're going on the Japan trip, or the European trip to Italy and Greece and Germany. And I have Ariana Adams in my delegation that's traveling with me to Japan. And then Sean Gordon and Alex Mackey are going in the other Albany high school delegation with other leaders. They're on the trip at least first, but those are the 5 students from South Colonie that are going. I don't know who from the middle school is going to. They're actually going to China. So it's quite exciting. We have, in this area, we have 3 different trips going on.
And I also stated that in a piece that they put out in the South Colonie School District website, that you really wanted to hit
all 7 continents.
All 7 continents.
Yeah, the newest trip is actually to Antarctica. And right now that's an alumni trip. I mean, I am able to get into that as a leader, but I haven't been to Australia yet, so I want to hit there first, and I haven't been to Africa. But this will be my 2nd time in Asia. I never thought I'd be in Asia. I have to tell you that my most amazing experience, I never thought I'd be in China, was actually at the Great Wall of China.
Was it really?
And I'm looking around, I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. I'm on the other side of the earth. I'm on the Great Wall of China, and I never thought I would be here. And the opportunity just kind of dropped in my lap because I'm in this organization, and actually in 1 month we'll find out where we're going next, but it's kind of exciting because it's like a new destination you never thought of traveling to. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing this experience with us. It
Okay.
really was wonderful.
Thanks
Thanks again.
All right.
And thank you for joining me on Getting to Know You. I hope you enjoyed today's program. I sure did. And we'll tune in next time. Until then, have a good one.